Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Penny Vigiano, and we are having our weekly call for the Minnesota Assisted Living Licensure. Today is July 15th. I welcome you all. Just a reminder, if you are not talking, please put yourself on mute. And we do want your thoughts and opinions as we go through this, so feel free to unmute yourself and talk. So we will go ahead and get started here as we go through. As always, we start our meetings with a prayer. So if you could center yourself, and if you choose to join me, please do. Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we are gathered here. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with the spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther to be the best that we can be. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Alrighty, so we're going to start with, last week we did clarify that volunteers, what volunteers and vendors were, but we wanted to just do a double check to see if there was any sort of legal definition. And so our esteemed counsel, Ben, is on the call. Ben, do you want to just let him know what you found as well? Just spoke to him. He should be on the call. Maybe he's late getting on. Okay, so I can tell you what Ben found. He basically found what we talked about last week. It does talk about, in the statute, it uses the word repeating volunteer. And so that is really kind of what we talked about before. It's the same type of people for which you'd have to do the TB test, you'd have to do the background check. It's the kind of people who come into your building repeatedly, are wandering through the building on their own so that you wouldn't necessarily know where they are. So a contractor who's coming in just to fix the boiler, you know they're in the boiler room, you escorted them there, you can get, you know there to get them out, so they would not count. So it's repeated people with access to the building, ongoing access. Any questions on that? Okay. And again, that was validated by legal, so I think we're good on that one. Okay, I had a couple questions on the org chart that I just wanted to clarify. So the org chart is a site-specific document. Each one of you, and you can make this through PowerPoint. PowerPoint has a section in which you can create graphs or charts, and it's a hierarchical chart, and it's really easy. You can just make your own org chart. Again, there isn't something that the support team would have because every community is a little bit different. It's not standard. So if you're not talking, please put us on mute.
I need a $1.
Oh, is somebody talking? To me? I thought I heard Penny.
No, it's somebody's child is talking. They're from an iPhone, so I can't tell who it is.
Yeah.
Who's ever on an iPhone with a child?
That's what I thought. I thought maybe those.
Yep. They need to mute.
Yep. I thought maybe because I thought I heard Penny, so I was like, oh, is something wrong with my speaker that their voice has changed? Okay. Nope. Thank you, Linda. All right. So again, site specific. That's how you would create that, and then a lot of questions around the review of the roles. So what Kathleen Murray had done was the RA onboarding now has a line on it that says review of roles. So what I would do is when I have that org chart, I would just say, this is the LALD, this is what this person does. This is the business office, this is what this person does. So you go through the org chart and you kind of talk about in this building, this is what they do. So for example, if it's, here's who does the nursing schedule, and this is where, you would get that information. And so for the other departments, culinary, housekeeping, etc., I would just add that line to your orientation checklist, and that's your documentation that you did it. There isn't going to be, and I think it would be too burdensome because roles change all the time. And so I think it's more of a conversation. Questions on that? Okay. All right, we're going to review the posting checklist here. Oops. Sorry, it's going the wrong way here. Yeah, let me pull this up. It's not letting me minimize this. And it's going to bring this into the screen. Alrighty, can you now see a posting checklist? Linda, can you verify that you can see this?
I cannot see anything yet.
Okay.
Penny, it's Barb. We haven't seen anything the whole time.
Oh dear, okay. How about now?
Yep, now I can see it.
Okay. All right. So this is the assisted living required postings and disclosures. So this is something that, again, we'll put in the on eSource so that you have it after this call, and it'll also be included in the minutes. So the things that you're going to need to post are your new license, your emergency disaster plan, and we're going to cover that today. The emergency exit diagrams on each floor, which all of you should already have because that's also building code. The 911 emergency contact in common areas and by phones. The Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center information and 911. I'm looking for a poster for this, and I know Jana was on vacation, and then this week she was in, I believe she was also in Nazareth. So she's still looking for this. I know that's something that she said that she would do, so more to come on that. The staff schedule, Dodie's going to talk about right after this. Your grievance procedure, which you should already have and should be in your admission documents. And then other currently required postings for HR and fair housing. Additional things, new things is the menu 1 week and ahead. Again, building exit diagrams, which you should already have. These are things to make available. And then the contract, complete unsigned contract to prospective residents. And again, you already have the contract. So disclosures. The disclosures, we're going to talk about this a little bit, but another thing that you have to give people when they sign the contract is policies and procedures. There's a different checklist for the policies and procedures. I'm going to come back to you on that one, but they can be on a website, and what we can give them is a reference to the website. So that's how we're going to do those, and we'll talk about that in future meetings so that we can get those policies written, work to get into the website, and then we'll bring them to you. So disclosure is the uniform checklist disclosure of services, which is the UDELSA, which you guys originally created and then was returned to you in your admission packages or your transition admission packages. Circumstances under which the facility may require transfer, including any transfer that may be required if the resident will be receiving housing support. So we'll talk about that in a second too. Availability of the contract information for long-term care consultants, contact information, sorry, which we do hand out. That is in your admission document, so you're already giving that. The dementia training, I did just reach out to Kathleen Murray to ask her. She's on the quality committee right now, so she's not on this call, but I did ask her to give us something from Matrix that talks about and meets this particular criteria, so we'll get that out to you. Assisted Living Bill of Rights, information about staff persons who can assist with healthcare and supportive information. That's also in your admission documents. And upon execution of the assisted living contract, provide resident with the names and contact information, including telephone numbers and email addresses of advocacy agencies, ombudsman, etc., which again is in your contract. And then make available upon request, survey connection or correction orders, copy of license, hard copy of dementia training. Additional requirements for dementia care are the policies and procedures for residents and their legal and designated residents at time of move-in. And again, we'll put those on the website. Any questions on that? Okay, so again, pretty much compliant, just need to make sure that it's posted there, and anything else we will make sure that you get. So the one thing that I didn't feel that we were compliant with yet is what are we going to hand them to meet this terms? The circumstance under which the facility may require a transfer, including any transfer that may be required if the resident will be receiving housing support. Conspicuous notice when entering into contract. So I did have a conversation with Ben, and the lease talks about the terms of the lease and the terms for which you would be violating the lease. If you don't pay, if you're posing risks to health and safety, if your behavior is disruptive, you know, those sort of things are already in the lease and talk about when you may be asked to transfer. The other thing that I would recommend to you to be compliant to this is you already have the UDELSA and you are already handing them the UDELSA. So it's really a conversation around, you know, we want to, we believe in aging in place. We want to take care of you. These are the services we provide. And if your needs go beyond these services, that's the time where you may want to look at a higher or different level of care. So Ben, would you add anything else to be compliant with this particular language? Ben, still not on. He's about to jump on. Okay, any questions on that?
So Penny, you're saying that that's a verbal disclosure?
Yes, yes. As I talked to Ben, we felt like because the contract talks about the terms for which that you would be violating the lease, and the UDELSA talks about the care and services that we provide, that between the two, we are handing them, these are the reasons that you be here. You know, so that we don't need to have an additional thing outlining them again, that if you go beyond this care or you don't do these things, then we're going to, you know, you can term. We're already basically doing that. The contract says a violation of the lease, the UDELSA says the services we provide, and then, you know, and so that fulfills the circumstance. And so we would just point that out, you know, when we review the contract, here's the terms of the lease that you need to comply with. This is the services that we are capable of supplying and offering here. Make sense?
Okay, yes, and then just another question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not on the list of postings required, but I'm assuming we need the license of the assisted living director posted?
It does not require that. We do have to say who's in charge, which should be the LALD. It doesn't say that we have to post their license. I have not seen that anywhere.
And then if there are more than one site, does each location need to have all these things posted?
Yes.
But just like in the entrance to each building, it's not like each unit needs to have all these things.
Correct, correct. Now, Dodie will talk about the posting of the staff, and we'll get into that one next, but all of this is the main entrance. So if I'm like a Madonna and I've got Madonna Towers, but behind the towers is well, that's a bad example because it is a separate entrance. You know, somebody's got a different unit that may have, well, no, that's a bad example too. I was thinking Marion where you could walk in one door and there's two licenses, but I can't think of any of you where the license isn't actually in a separate building with a separate entrance. So yes, each building would need to have their entrance to have these things posted. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And then again, the staffing will go into next. And I'm going to pull up another PowerPoint here and turn it over to Dodie.
There was one question in the chat from Cassie. I'm wondering if the document that you shared from Leading Age, is that somewhere out in eSource, or are we sending that out after? I think it's the checklist. I was trying to verify with Cassie.
Yeah, so I will, right after this meeting, I will put it in the minutes and also underneath kind of relevant documents. I'm just listing Freeform, and I'll put it in both places, Cassie.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jerry is in the quality meeting. So I'm going to introduce Dodie, who I'm sure you all are very familiar. She is our expert in staffing and staffing plans. So we need to have a standard staffing plan, and it does need to be posted. It does need to be posted in a conspicuous place. So I would say that that would mean that unit should have the staffing for that unit posted. Again, depending on your layout and how you want if you're a building that maybe the right wing is one unit, the left wing is the other, but it's the main entrance, you may want to just post it all in one spot. But again, conspicuous place. So Dodie, I have the slides up. Do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I have a question. Is Evans on? I believe Evans is covering all of the slides except for the report that I'm going to show you for posting.
Okay. Jerry was going to check. I believe Evans may be on a plane. Evans, are you on? Okay. So then I will wing it. Thank you for that clarification, Dodie. Okay. So we do need to have a standard staffing plan. At night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., call light responses in a reasonable amount of time. So now this is a change. It used to say we had to respond to the call light within 10 minutes. Now it just says a reasonable amount of time. So the staffing plan, you need to be able to defend that I looked at the cares or I looked at the needs that were at night. Maybe I pull my call light report and I look at how many call lights I have. And yes, my one person at night has been able to reasonably respond to the cares that are needed at night. If you're a different building and you're, making this up, 150 beds and you've got your apartments and you've got 30 call lights going on every 5 minutes, then no, it's not responding in a reasonable amount of time. They're waiting a half an hour or whatever, then you would need to address that. So again, Dodie's going to walk us through how you do staffing plan based on standard. We showed you in a different webinar and sent out a tool on how you evaluate what are the needs and what is the level of care I'm actually providing. So that's again how you would look at, you'd pull your points, you'd pull your call light response, you'd look at your service plans, you determine, yes, I do or do not have enough people to respond to needs in a reasonable amount of time. And I would say 24/7, not just 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. But here they're getting at the one person on nights. Oops. If you do have a two-person transfer, you must have two persons scheduled at all times. So again, this one's pretty clear. If you only have one person at night, you cannot accept anybody who needs a two-person transfer. If you have somebody who temporarily needs a two-person transfer because of end of life or something like that, then you either need to add a second person, or I would say probably more reasonably is asking family to have somebody stay through the night so that you have somebody watching that person and meeting those needs. Well, they need to transfer, you may need staff. And then the dementia unit, they must be awake at all times, which is not a change because that's always been the Benedictine standard. So the staffing review, direct care staffing, planning, scheduling, and posting. Oops. So there is a policy. It is in the policy and procedure handbook that's being put onto eSource that Jerry reviewed last time. So all these policies are already there for you. The policy specifically states the assisted living facility will provide an adequate number of qualified direct care staff to meet the residents' needs 24/7. Policy is a clinical nurse supervisor must develop and implement a written staffing plan that provides an adequate number of direct care staff to meet the residents' needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Dodie's going to cover smart links and how you run reports and such, and that's your staffing plan, and then your evaluation to make sure that you have enough is again what we showed you previously as far as reports that you would pull from Matrix. The procedure, there is a written staffing plan developed by the ALDON. When developing the direct care staffing plan, follow the items are addressed to ensure staffing levels are adequate. Each resident's needs as identified in the resident service plan and assisted living contract. Each resident's acuity level as determined by the most recent assessment or individualized review. The ability of staff to timely meet the resident's scheduled and reasonably foreseen unscheduled needs given the physical layout of the facility premises, whether the facility has a secured unit and staff experience, training, and competency. 2, the 24-hour daily staffing schedule is developed to include direct care staff work schedules for each direct care staff member showing all work shifts, including days and hours worked, and identifies the associate's residence assignments or work location. The daily work schedule is posted in a central location accessible to staff, residents, volunteers, and the public. The daily staffing schedule identified in the number and type of direct care associates assignments. The schedule is posted daily and includes all shifts. If there's a change in staffing, the nurse supervisor or a designee will update the schedule. The daily work schedules are retained, and the facility shall not disclose any information that is protected by law from public disclosure. Basically meaning you're not saying that Ade Shelley has these residents.
Hey, Penny,
Yes, ma'am.
Barb, back on that other page.
Yep.
There's a typo in the policy. I think C and D are the same sentence.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Barb. I'll let Jerry know. Jerry, typo. I'll ask just to check the formatting. Thank you, Barb. Direct care staffing plan. So the Benedicta resources are the budgeted staffing tool and the SmartLink schedule. Points, percentage of service plan done by a professional nurse, extra service reports, and caller reports. So again, this is, she's got this backwards a little bit here. The SmartLink staffing schedule is what Doty's going to go through, and the budgeted staffing tool is going over this stuff. Direct care scheduling, direct care staff work schedules for each direct care staff member showing all work shifts, including days, hours worked, and identifies the associate's residence assignments or work location. And again, we're going to use SmartLinks for that. Schedule is posted daily and includes all shifts. If there's a change in staffing, the nurse supervisor designee will update, and the daily work schedules will be retained. And this is what the SmartLinks report looks like. And thank you to Barb for identifying that this existed, because it made life really simple. All we had to do was call Doty, and we will turn it away to Doty.
All right, give me a moment and I'll share my screen.
Okay. I will stop sharing.
All right. All right, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So before I show you the report that you're going to pull and post for your daily staffing, I just want to remind everybody that it's important to have your census entered on a daily basis, because that census that you enter is going to be visible on the posting report, and it also assists in all of your daily staffing tools. So as a reminder, where to enter your census, it's under the Schedule Optimizer options on the left of your screen, under Schedule, and down to Census. If you click on the census screen, it brings you up to your daily census. You select the date at the top left, check the box to push the census forward. That way, if you don't have a change in census tomorrow, you don't have to update the census. It's just whenever you have a staffing or a census change, you want to make sure to go into SmartLinks and update that as well. Add the census to the units at the bottom. Once you've made a change, then your save button will illuminate. You can click save, and it's going to push that census forward then for at least 20 days. So you can always keep an eye on that to make sure that that is accurate and correct. Taking a look next at the report that you want to pull on a daily basis and post.
Doty?
Yes.
We did have a question in the chat. Rob wants to know if you should enter the second person occupancy in the census.
You should not. Finance only uses first occupancy, and we have been instructed that for SmartLinks purposes, we only use first occupancy as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? All right, next we'll take a look at the actual report. SmartLinks created this report several years ago for the long-term care communities to use, and they should be pulling this and posting this already. So it's under your reports application on the left. It's a
Doty?
standard report. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting again. Can you reshare your screen? We've got a chat saying they can't see it.
Oh, absolutely.
I can see it, so I'm not sure if it's,
Yeah, we can just try it one more time. I can see it too.
You can see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a refresh. So if you still can't see it, Karen, it may be something on your end.
All right.
Doty?
Yes.
This is Cassie and Ada. I have Christy Rue, our administrative assistant. I grabbed her to sit in on this because she's the one going to be doing the report. And our Huck, Katie, over on the SNF side, was teaching her how to do it. But she said when it pulls up for the AL side, it comes up blank. So is there something different between SNF and AL?
There
On
is
how to
not, but if the report hasn't been customized yet for you, I can do that for you. So just shoot me a message or have Katie shoot me a message saying, check the settings for my report, and I'll take a look at
Okay.
that right after our call.
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
Anything else? All right, so again, this was under reports, standard reports, and we're looking under the schedule optimizer reports. And this has been recently named. So it used to be just titled staffing, today's staffing, and now it is BHS today's staffing. And they did that because there's two reports that were titled the exact same thing, and it was just too confusing to say, pick the bottom one, pick the top one. So you are looking for the BHS today's staffing report. When you click on that report, and you want to do this through the nursing department, if you try to run this at the top level of just say Madonna Meadows instead of Madonna Meadows Nursing, you're not going to see this report. So if you think you don't have access, double check your location. For me, in the upper left corner, you can see that I'm in the nursing department. Go ahead and click on the report, select the date that you want to run the report for, download, generate. Give it a minute to open. And there the report is for us. Enable before you go ahead and print. It's separated into the day, evening, and night categories. And then under each one of those, it's going to break down your position categories, the actual positions worked, how many people are working each position, and the exact shift times that they're scheduled to. The total number of hours each person in each position is scheduled to work, total for each category, and then a total for the day, evening, and night shift as well. At the bottom of the report, you have your overall total number of hours and total number of associates expected to work this day. Notice at the top left, you do have the census, so it's important that you have that census correct before you print this report. If you have any staffing changes throughout the day, you want to make sure that you are changing this report or going into SmartLinks, making all of those edits and printing a new report as those staffing changes happen.
So Dodie, that was one of my clarifications. So it's okay to just, if you've got a designee on a weekend, they can just cross off one and like they only work 5 hours as opposed to 15 or whatever the case may be. They don't have, or do they need to go into SmartLinks?
I have been told in the past, and maybe someone's on the line from clinical that can clarify, but I have been told as long as this report is changed, even if it's in pen, that's okay. But maybe somebody else has different information.
I mean, it's fine for the regulations because it still tells you what it is. I just wanted to make sure that Benedictine policy as far as how we document our staffing. So does anybody have any thoughts on what the standard is in the SNF?
Penny, it's Barb. I'd be happy if others did the talking because I start to think I'm the only one with questions. So in the perfect world, of course, the changes would be made in SmartLinks. A new schedule would be printed out and posted. That would be the perfect world. Unfortunately, we do not live in the perfect world. So the next best thing is that the changes are just like penciled and penned in, so that at least what's at the door is close to being what happens. And then the SmartLinks changes are maybe happened a little bit farther, hours later or the next day or something. But anyway, yes, it's very difficult to make those changes real time.
Right, right. So, but what I heard you say is that at some point in time, there is an expectation that SmartLinks is updated, or does that not matter?
It does matter. You do want that to be updated and be your correct system of record, because if somebody has a cancellation or a call in, you want to make sure to track that in SmartLinks so that you can then pull that out later in a report. You want to make sure to track your associates that are on floor orientation or classroom training. All of that matters for your finances and, in the SNF for PBJ as well.
Okay. So from a compliance to the AL rules, pen and paper is fine. Down the road, put it into SmartLinks. Okay, thank you. Other questions for Dodie? Okay, thank you, Dodie, very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so I will share my screen again. And share. Okay, can you guys see my PowerPoint again that says Dodie?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just, we talked about this before, but just a clarification, because it was actually the state, not Leading Age, that went through this. No, it was Leading Age. Listened to too many trainings yesterday. It was the clinical training from Leading Age. So the pre-admission assessment was reviewed by Evans in the June training at Plymouth. So this is the document that when we're deciding whether or not we can manage their care, the RN is working with the person to do an evaluation tool. And so the clarification is that the document needs to be completed on all persons with or without services. So if I'm a salesperson and the person says, I absolutely do not want any services and want nothing to do with the nurse, they have the right to decline this, but we do have to offer and say, even though you don't want services, it is part of our process that the nurse still would meet with you and do this assessment on you. That needs to be offered, and then we need to document that that was not offered. So again, I think it's fine, and I know Linda's on the call, so you can weigh in here, that it's a salesperson saying, hey, do you want services? Do you want to meet with our nurse? That is our process, but it does need to get into the chart somewhere. So the nurse would need to then enter the fact that they decline this. So Linda, any thoughts on how that document or process might best work?
I haven't really thought that through, other than if we could put a line on the actual contract that says declining nursing assessment. We could also add a line potentially on the face sheet, and I put Shelley Middlestad on this call today because I think we have one more box open. And yes, Al, it does include all assisted living residents now that are in independent living, because we call them all assisted living. I think it would be easiest just on the contract to either say, yes, I will have an assessment, or no, because then it's documented. And it's with the contract. So yeah. I don't know what other thoughts are.
And again, we don't need to go backwards, just forward.
Right. I think it would be easy to add a line in the contract at this point, but.
So that's something that we can do. If anybody has thoughts and you think a better process for how you guys want to handle this, let us know. But either, I think that's clean because it can be done on the administrative side. We've got the proof of it. And then if they do want it, then obviously that would be documented using that tool, and that would be entered in.
And then the nurse doesn't have to get involved or worry about charting it because we won't even know.
Right. Okay. That seems to make sense. We'll add that line. Alrighty. Individualized vulnerable adult assessment. And so this is, again, I'm going to ask Linda to weigh in here, but it was something that came out from Leading Age in their most recent newsletter, reminding us that everybody in the AL, and we are all AL now, so even our persons without services, who we all otherwise know as independent living people, need a vulnerable adult assessment. So what we're going to do is Linda and Evans and Jana are meeting on Monday, and they're going to come up with a quick and simple checklist in order to do this. So as you see that, I just wanted to let you know that we saw it as well. It is something we're working on. And again, Linda, would you say anything else regarding that?
So we had a question in the chat too, Penny. So would the completed pre-admission form be put in with the lease if they do not have services? If we did do the pre-admission form and then they declined having any services or home care or assisted living services, yes, we'd still put that in. We would keep it. And then as far as, I hope I answered your question. And as far as the individualized vulnerable adult assessment, we do have an example from Leading Age. I don't know if you can pull that up, Penny.
Oh, I forgot to grab it. Do you
Oh.
have it up that you can just share your screen? Otherwise I can let me open it.
Yeah, I can quick open it.
Okay. Sorry. My
Nope,
phone
that's
rang as I
fine.
was gonna grab that.
Let me just. I'll show you what theirs looks like. That's not the right one. Hang on. Okay. So theirs is a two-part form. I could easily make this into senior living as a form so that we have it documented in Matrix. Everybody who has a abuse prevention plan, because we have to do it on all tenants not having services. The people who have services, nursing will do, but this is probably going to fall on the housing or wellness or whoever to fill out some kind of a individual abuse prevention plan. There shouldn't be a lot of typing into it, hopefully. We could also put it in as an event on the elite side, or it wouldn't be an event, it would be an observation, right, Shelley? We could create it on the elite side since they don't use senior living a lot. Or we can do paper, which I hate to do paper. But I would like some feedback on that.
So the two options, if I'm hearing you correct, Linda, the two options, so this is the form that will comply with that. And you and Jana and Evans are just doing the final tweak on this on Monday. But the two options are, it can be paper, is what I'm hearing you, so that people other than nursing can do it. Or it can be put into Matrix, in which we would just teach whoever is going to fill this out how to access it in Matrix, just like we do with the person-centered wellness plan. The advantage to one, paper, is it's easier to not have to open up Matrix. The advantage to two, having it in Matrix, is you can run the report in order to prove that you did this, and it's not, if somebody's saying prove that everybody has an abuse prevention plan, you can easily run a report and prove it. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes. I think it's just cleaner not having paper. I mean, we can put it in everyone's admission packet too. So I just would like some feedback, how you guys want to go forward with this.
I would say, this is Kendra. I would say with everything else, with a new move-in already being on paper that we're then uploading to Matrix, it just makes sense to do that, because otherwise this would kind of be the only thing that housing manager or sales would do separate in a different place. I think that would confuse it.
And then the question is then, how are you going to make sure you're updating it? And then, because they're going to see how often you're accessing it, updating it, because it can't just be a one and done. You're
How
probably
often do we
gonna
have to upload it, update it?
There's no statute, but I know it'll come because there's no way.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, why haven't you looked at this in over a year or 5 years?
Yeah, I would say probably at least annually, and or a change of condition. Anytime that there is reason to assume that their status and ability to not be abused would change.
Is there any way that it could be a form on eSource? Because a lot of times you would be reviewing these when an incident happens or a concern happens. So if it's somehow linked, maybe that's down the road, but it's just a thought.
Like it would trigger on ROMP. That's a good idea. Like if you're adding a change for someone, maybe even just adding the checkbox on the bottom, like, since you're documenting this change on this IL resident, have you updated their abuse prevention plan?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Shelley
Right.
Middlestat, do you have any thoughts since you kind of know
Well,
the
is
ROMP
this
side?
well, the ROMP side, I think we're entering ROMPs for vulnerable adult situations, but I don't think you'd put this individualized prevention plan in a ROMP.
No, I think what they're saying is can that be a question on ROMP where it says, did you update the abuse prevention plan? And that it would be kept.
And it would
We'd
only
have-
be, it would only be for IL residents, people with no services.
Or even on the concern form, when on the concerns database.
I mean, those can certainly trigger it, but I think it's also, and again, it's not really defined, but you'd want to, let's say somebody who is just lost a spouse, or you now has somebody coming in from the outside to help them with something. So again, just something that might trigger a change in vulnerability. But I think those are two good feel safes. So again, the committee will take it back and kind of look at some suggestions. So, okay, so I'm hearing, but I also saw Ellen say paper. And
And
there's
a few papers. And if you guys want to email me on, when you've thought about it, I'm more than happy to take the emails and kind of keep track and any suggestions.
And so just to clarify, because Linda did answer the question of is this just for people without services? This is for all people. However, it's built into the nursing assessment, so only the ILs would need a separate form. Correct, Linda?
Ours is much more detailed with services.
Right.
This is a scaled down version for anyone not receiving home care or assisted living services now we call it. I got to get used to the new window.
So you're going to take this you're going to take the feedback so far and additional feedback and then come back to us next week after you meet with Jana and Evans.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, thank you. All right, next item here. Okay, you guys did receive, or at least some of you, I'm not sure who all was on the call, but did receive information from your regional finance directors. We talked about this before. The last call, you did follow up on what I asked you to do, to contact your regional directors of finance to figure out how much of a credit you should give people who choose to opt out of meals.
Penny, are you showing anything or?
I'm supposed to be, yep. Let me fix that.
And then don't forget about my evacuation.
Yes, that's still on here.
Okay.
It's just coming up. Why is this not? Why can't I share my screen? I have to find my bar to share my screen. Share screen. Okay. So okay. So the update on the meal opt-out. So the regional finance directors spoke to Kevin, our chief financial officer, and he said he would prefer that it just be generic for everybody. So the credit that we will give people is breakfast is $60, lunch is $90, and dinner is $90 a month. So basically $3 a day times 30. And how they calculated this was looking at the raw food costs and et cetera. So we've talked about this before. We've given out talking points. Janice created them on a very positive affirmation of the reality that if you choose to opt out of food, you're certainly doing that, but what you're going to opt out of is and get credit for is the cost for the additional meal, because the rules say we still have to have the kitchen up and running whether you're eating or not. So the only difference between our costs that we're able to credit back to you out of the base because of the fact that the kitchen has to be fully staffed and running is the cost of the additional meal. And so that's what this is. So again, look at the talking points.
This is the price we're going to use. Can you still hear me? Because my earbuds just went out.
Yes, you're just a little quieter.
Can you hear me?
Talk very loud and we should be able to hear you.
Difficulties here. Okay, can you all hear me?
Crystal clear.
Okay, good, thank you. My microphone just went out, so let me put this back up.
You have another question, Penny?
Yes,
It says, for new contracts, can we accept or have available digital signatures, e-signatures for POAs that are out of town and state?
Ben, are you on the call?
Yep, just jumped on. We haven't traditionally accepted digital signatures through like a vendor that authenticates them. But if the POA, like out of state person, has something like DocuSign or something like that, that they'd be willing to use for it, we could. But I would say like just like them typing in like with the cursive type text that looks like a signature, probably not. I mean, they could just print and scan us over a signed copy, which would again be a little less easy than just clicking digitally sign, but that might be a somewhat of a fix rather than having them physically sign. But a scan of an actual copy, like we send them the blank PDF, they print it out, or even the signature page and send it back, that would be easier than, again, them just typing in their name for a digital signature.
And if they don't have access to a scanner, you can send it to them through snail mail, and they can take a picture of their phone and upload it to an email as well.
Yep. And there are some good apps that'll convert a picture to a PDF that looks like a scan pretty good well too. If anyone wants to shoot me an email offline, I'll suggest some.
All right, so back to the extra meals. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. So we do want it standardized. So if a person says, I want to opt out, then you would say, what meal are you opting out for? Are you opting out for all 3 meals? Are you opting out for what breakfast? Are you opting out for lunch? So that this can be, so that you can give them the appropriate credits. Again, go to Janice's talking point. Patty is setting this up as a system level so that it is in there. So you don't need to worry about setting that up. If your BOM can't find it, have them contact Patty. So any questions on that?
You have a comment in the chat from Ron Hansen. Meal costs for a la carte should be more to make the plan more enticing, question mark.
Yes, and the talking points do talk about that as well, that if you opt out and you choose to eat, it will cost you more to eat a la carte, because that is the retail price. That is the cost of food. You know, again, just like in a restaurant, the cost of food is all of your costs. But if you're going to give a credit, it's just because all of those other costs are already in there and they're baked into your operational budget. And someone just takes away one meal, you still have all those costs. So again, the talking points put it in the positive. It's a much better deal. You're welcome to opt out, but really this is why we include it in the base. It's so much of a better deal. We'll make sure that you eat all these nutritional meals. This is the way to go. So that's the credit. And yes, it is less than what it would cost if you buy the food a la carte. So so again, we're not going to put this credit on our monthly rate. It does say in the contract that you can opt out, and so it would just be if they choose to make that choice, then you would pull out a separate document that Ben is writing right now. That's kind of the addendum that would use this pricing and say this is the credit that you're going to get. Similar to, we don't, many of our buildings don't advertise that we take pets, but if someone has a companion pet, we have a pet policy. So it would be a separate addendum. So your rate sheet should just say this is what meals cost, or your handbook refer to the menu, so that people know what meals cost. And then this would be a separate sheet if they say, hey, I want to look at that opt-out. Okay. All right. Moving to emergency planning. So in the emergency planning, as we've talked about before, I'm just trying to pull up the policy here. Okay, can you see a policy? Linda, do you see the policy?
Sorry, I was on mute.
So this is, what I've done is, this is a revised policy and procedure for Minnesota. We already, meaning Benedictine already has a very robust disaster and emergency preparedness plan. If you are already included in your campus plan, or you don't need to necessarily do something different. I'll show you the different components to it here that you may need to. So the disaster plan, here's the policy though, that is specific to assisted living. And so this will be in your policy and procedure book, and it talks about all the things that you need to do in order to be compliant with the new rules and regs. So it talks about the different pieces that you're going to have to do. And this is the pieces that some of you are missing. Many of you have the operational plan, and we'll click through each one of these quickly, and I know we're running out of time. But some of you are missing the vulnerability hazard plan. So and then there's a communication plan and tabletop exercises or exercises for the required tests. So assessment plan, communication plan, and testing of the emergency procedure through tabletop exercises or other type of exercises. So this talks about what needs to be included in the plan. This talks about how you develop it. This talks about what it should address. So if you have an emergency generator, your answer to this is going to be different than someone who's using flashlights as your emergency thing. Because the flashlights would require, like, how are we checking batteries? How are we doing whatever? So each one of you is going to be a little bit different, and it may be a little bit different than the SNF. So you're going to want to just look at it and make sure that it fits in. So here's your policy and procedure. Here's talking about conducting tests, who needs to be trained, orientating your residents, orientating your volunteers and contractors, and we talked about that. Posting the emergency plan, having a written policy, etc. So in the PowerPoint, I did give you where this is located. This is the same for all of Benedictine under long-term care operations, but there is a separate spot just for the assisted living. I'm just going to go into emergency plan here and pull up some documents for you. Okay, so a couple things. This is the risk assessment, which is a little bit different than what was used in the past and is available to you. So if you've already done this, again, the fact that this looks different is fine. But this was recently posted by the Minnesota Department of Health. And I think it's a little bit easier than the one that we have and a little bit more geared towards some of the basic things that we need to cover. So it has instructions, it talks about natural hazards, technology hazards, human hazards, hazardous material, the latest from the Minnesota Department of Health. So if you have not done your risk assessment, that needs to be done. Next thing I'm pulling up is the communication plan. This is exactly the same. As what was put out in 2017. Everything is still relevant and fits perfect to what we need to do and talks you through these sorts of things. What am I going to do for Wi-Fi? What am I going to do?
Oh, sorry, Penny. You have a question. If they've already done the other risk assessment, is that okay, or should they use this template and redo it?
You should be fine. You're just going to want to make sure that it's covering all the areas that would normally be a risk to you. So I would just take a look at it really quick and just say if there's something that wasn't covered on there, then I would add it, but otherwise you're fine. This one's actually simpler than the other one. So there are some of you, again, that are completely compliant and don't have to do anything. Others of you may need to tweak. Others of you may need to add a component because you only added one of the 4 components. And so again, this is exactly the same as the past. Nothing has changed. Then the other thing that I could not find in the crosswalk within our current, but we have the tools for it, is the staff backup plan. So we did use this during COVID, and so I'm just gonna put it in the file so that everybody has it. This is basically what would happen if I would, during an emergency, I didn't have access to all of my staff. We've all just dealt with this during COVID. Many of you already filled this out. You would just add it to your plan. And so who are the people in my building? Who's the backup if they disappear? What's the second backup on an emergency in a split second? If Linda is out tomorrow, who's taking her place? And then what is the long-term plan if Linda was out for weeks or months or what have you? And is there additional training, right? So an LALD probably covered by the executive director. Some of you have your DON also certified as an LALD. Long-term, you'd probably have to go to an agency and get a consultant to come in, that sort of thing. And then for each one, we have standard work. And so all of your key roles, these would be the things, oh, need to take that out. These would be the items that had to be done. So again, if I'm Kendra, I would write down, if I went out tomorrow and someone had to cover me, who's paying the bills, who's doing this? These are the things that I would write down that somebody needs to know, I need to get this covered. Okay, so between all of those and then the actual emergency plan, and I'll show you what I did there. Open. This again with the old emergency plan, you don't need to change it if you've already done with the SNF. What I did was just make it, if you're a freestanding or a new one and don't have your own RTD included, I just made it apply to everybody by changing it from nursing home to just general like incident command. It does talk about in our policy, you can do it as a site or a standalone. If you're new to doing this, I did update the contacts. I'm just scrolling down here quickly. So I updated the contacts from old leaders to new leaders. I updated who our partnering facilities are. So it's just moved it from 2017 to 2021. So it's just a nice clean document that's more updated. But again, no need to do it over if you've already got this done. Any questions on emergency planning? Okay. So we're not going to get through the whole agenda today, but I do just want to get through this really quick because we have a question on this too. So Linda, why don't you ask the question here and then we'll.
Okay, we have to have an evacuation template for emergencies, how each resident's ability is. And so I have a couple thoughts. We will have it in our evaluation, of course. It's already in there under the vulnerable adults, and everyone can see it. But we also, I believe, have to have one on, do we have to have them on the independent people also, Penny?
Yes.
So here's my thought. We make a new, and Shelley Middlestat, I need you for this. We make you a flow sheet for evacuation. We put in a nursing order or general order, how they need to be evacuated. So if we do have to run a report, we could get them all into one flow sheet. Or we could put it on the face sheet. Because we have, I think, one template left next to the senior linkage line that we could use for evacuation. So if they need assistance, if they have to have a wheelchair, if they need a transfer, all those information could be kept on the face sheet. It will be in the service plan also because it's part of our evaluation for nursing. So just wanted to throw some thoughts out there. Do you have a different place that maybe I'm not thinking? What would be easiest, make the most sense, and be quick if we have to pull reports during a fire or an evacuation of some sort? You can email me or call me and then I'm gonna work with Shelley if you want it on the elite side.
So we
Any
do,
initial thoughts?
oh, sorry. We do have our COVID call today. So I'm just looking, I don't see if there's anything immediately in the chat. Chat's not coming up. But I would ask you, so email Linda, like she said, call, let us know if you have any thoughts on that. So again, either an order where you can print up the the ability to be mobile in the event of an emergency, or other documentation,
Or on the face sheet.
or on the face sheet. So let Linda know your thoughts and we will bring it back to you next week. In the
Thanks,
meantime,
guys.
thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.